Welcome to this video lecture for Understanding Project Management, a Practical Guide, Chapter 10, Communications Planning. So we are now going to cover the final topic within the planning phase, communications planning, a very important topic in planning. The agenda is what should be communicated, how should project documents be stored, and how should project meetings be managed. The value of effective communication during a project cannot be overstated. More times than not, when a project fails, the reason is ineffective communication. So therefore, the development of a communication plan is very important. This plan should include the communication of project information, identifying who needs what does each stakeholder group need to know, and how should it be conveyed to them. It should also include the communication project status information. So here's a video which describes the process of creating the communication management plan.
Sophie begins to think about the communications that should occur during the project. How much communication is needed? It would be nice to have frequent meetings, but when would the work itself get done? Should there be more face-to-face interaction or more information posted online? How often should the information be produced? All these questions pass through Sophie's mind as she considers how to plan the communications. She then asks herself, who is it that the project needs to communicate with? The answer is clear: the project stakeholders. With this insight, she pulls out the stakeholder register and lists each stakeholder on a blank sheet of paper. She considers the different reasons why she might have to communicate with them, such as providing a status update or a review of daily work tasks. She then proceeds to list the reasons under each stakeholder name. Sophie considers different communication media, such as video meetings, in-person meetings, emails, and written reports, and asks herself which one would be the most effective for each of the requirements on her list. Next, she considers the timing. When should one-time communications occur? How often should recurring communications occur? As Sophie finishes this process, she reviews the results of her work. A document outlining the various communications that will be performed during the project. While she knows that effective communication will be an ongoing challenge, she's feeling a lot more confident now that she has a plan.
Okay, in terms of creating the communication management plan, Sophie reviews the stakeholder documents to ensure that she understands the needs of each stakeholder. This allows her to consider the types of information that would be needed by each stakeholder. If she thinks about her audience, the stakeholders, that will guide her to determine the type and the content of the information. She also considers the communication medium. For example, in some cases, a medium may be warranted, while in other cases, an email may suffice. And it's important to deliver the information in ways conducive to stakeholder needs. You can see the communication plan for the case study in the textbook, Chapter 10. So key idea, create a plan for project communications based on the information needs of the project stakeholders. Now, the next question, how should the project documents be stored? During a project, a large number of project documents are usually created. There can be dozens, hundreds of files and documents and all kinds of information, and it can quickly become a problem. Without a plan of where to store these documents and how to organize them, it becomes increasingly difficult to find and update them throughout the project. Problems can be created by project team members accessing the incorrect information. Therefore, it's important to logically structure the organization so that the team can find the appropriate information when required. So let's watch this next video about creating the project documentation guidelines.
Sophie knows from past experience that effective communication is vital for her project. More often than not, whenever one of her projects has underperformed, the root cause was a problem with the way people communicated with each other. During her last project, it was difficult for her project team to find the latest project documents. A great deal of time and effort was spent figuring out where documents were stored, and in some cases mistakes were made because an incorrect document was used. This time, Sophie plans to set out the guidelines at the start of the project. Sophie plans to store all documents on the project website using a new document management system recently purchased by Deco Productions. Folders will be set up to logically organize the documents, and the company standard for project file names will be used. Lastly, Sophie will designate the documents that will require versions to be maintained.
So the development of project documentation guidelines should address the following type of information. The storage location and organization. That is, where are the documents going to be? They shouldn't just be scattered across people's PCs and laptops and kind of haphazard and so on. There should be some central location of storage that everyone can access and those that need access, and it should be appropriately organized. Documents, particularly electronic documents, should have naming conventions so that we can see what's inside of them based on the name of the file. And certain documents require versions, specific versions like the project charter or the project scope statement may need different explicit versions. So key idea, you can create guidelines to demonstrate how the project should store and organize project documents, how these documents should be named, and whether the document versions are required. And you can see the documentation guidelines for the case study in the textbook, chapter 10. Now, the next section is on project meetings. This is a form of communication that is important within projects. The communication management plan will usually refer to a number of meetings that will occur during the project. And this is, by the way, these processes are for formal meetings. Not every time, 2 or 3 team members get together on a not ad hoc basis, but for formally planned meetings. So for these formal meetings, they should include the creation of a meeting agenda and the documentation of meeting minutes. And so we're going to go through each of those. So in terms of creating a meeting agenda, here's a video which demonstrates the creation of such an agenda.
Sophie scans the communication management plan and sees that the next meeting is the scope review meeting, so she starts to work on the agenda. She decides to invite Arun and the project team. Thinking about the meeting, she lists the topics to be included. For each topic, she includes the person who will present the topic and the amount of time to be allotted, making sure there is enough time to cover each topic and leave a few minutes at the end of the meeting in case any topics require a little more time. She knows from past experience that this sometimes happens during meetings. Once the agenda is complete, she saves the information in the meeting agenda document and sends it to the meeting attendees a few days before the meeting.
So the meeting agenda document should contain the following information: the name of the meeting, who is facilitating or organizing the meeting, the time and location so that people know where and when to go, who is invited so that everybody knows who's going to be part of this, and the topics to be discussed, including the person who will present, lead the topic, and the anticipated amount of time required. So this gives the invitees a good idea of what's going to go on at this meeting. You can see the meeting agenda for the case study in the textbook, chapter 10. Now, once the agenda is sent out and the meeting arrives, we need to conduct effective project meetings. The meeting facilitator should ensure that the agenda is followed. So we created an agenda, so we need now to follow it. Someone in the meeting should be designated to record the meeting minutes of the meeting, and it shouldn't be the facilitator. That's too big of a job to both facilitate and to record the minutes of the meeting. And by the minutes of the meeting, we mean the summary of the meeting, that what happened, what was discussed, and what were the major decisions that were made. In terms of the benefits of recording meeting minutes, well, it becomes a record of what happened. Remember, this is for formal meetings where likely decisions are going to be made and direction will be determined. And therefore, it's important for us to capture that information so that we don't have different, people recalling different things that were decided. And for anyone who cannot attend, they can still read about what was determined or what was discussed and decided during the meeting. Let's watch this video now in terms of conducting effective project meetings.
As the scope review meeting is about to start, Sophie confirms with Fatijit that he will record the minutes of the meeting and lets him know that Eli will be unable to attend, as he was invited to another meeting. She then starts the meeting.
Good morning everyone, and welcome to this key milestone meeting. Special thanks for the project team for their hard work in getting the scope defined in such a short period of time. Before we begin the meeting, are there any additional topics to add to the agenda?
The team agrees that there are no additional items, and Sophie begins the meeting. She guides the meeting to cover each agenda topic and keeps her eye on the time to ensure that each topic stays within the time allotted. As each topic is concluded, the key discussions, decisions, and action items are summarized so that Fatijit can ensure this information is recorded accurately in the meeting minutes. During the meeting, Maddie mentions that she read about a new video processing software system that has just been released. She begins to talk about how this could improve the quality of the new promotional video that she and Eli are creating. Since this is not an agenda item for the current meeting, Sophie recommends that the discussion of the new video processing system be added to the meeting's parking lot. This satisfies Maddie, as she knows from past experience that Sophie will follow up on the parking lot items after the meeting and ensure that they are effectively handled. Following the meeting, Sophie and Fatijit meet to review the meeting minutes. Based on this discussion, they make a few adjustments to the information, and then Sophie files both the agenda and the meeting minutes in the meeting agenda and minutes folder, as defined in the project documentation guidelines. Another successful meeting has been concluded. Checking the communication management plan, Sophie begins work on the next agenda.
Okay, so the meeting minutes, which is the document containing a summary of the meeting, contains the following: the name of the meeting, who facilitated, who led the meeting, the date, time, who attended from those who were invited, and each topic should be listed together with a summary of the discussion. Now, it doesn't need to be a complete transcript. This is not the minute court transcript writer. It's a summary of distilling down what was discussed in terms and as well as key decisions. It should also include a list of action items that are arising from the meeting. You can see the meeting minutes for the case study in the textbook, chapter 10. And key idea: plan for effective project meetings that include the use of agendas and minutes. The key terminology from chapter 10, you can find it in the key terminology section. Here are the references, and thanks for watching.